Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us this evening for a very special opening of Ghulam Bhai's exhibition titled City and Cities, which all of you have just seen or rather experienced. Ghulam Bhai, who needs no introduction, in Baroda is a pioneering figure for Indian contemporary art. Through an artistic career which has spanned over 6 decades, Ghulam Bhai has pushed the boundaries of storytelling, memory, and research across various mediums, formats, and scales, which include installation, photography, painting, sculpture, digital collages, poetry, and literature, a small section of which is an exhibition here. City and Cities is a comprehensive display of Ghulam Bhai's preoccupation and exploration with the city of Baroda, alongside other cities that have entered his work over the years and over the 6 decades that he's been practicing. A recreation of the seminal installation of the city, which was conceptualized in 2010 for an exhibition in Shanghai, which was in 2011, occupies the distillery. His ongoing preoccupation, which is with the city and the world, are arterial to the entire exhibition, and which is also something that he has used through his practice to navigate the way he's explored sound, he's explored poetry, and the way he's explored printmaking. It's also how each of us navigate our everyday encounters with layers of memory by creating meaning in what we take away objectively or subjectively, with time and with people, with how we encounter our histories. In 2019, when we first opened an exhibition at the distillery, Ghulam Bhai and I had started talking about what could be a possibility of what he'd show. And then when he saw the space, he spoke about the city, the drawing, which is currently on display, saying that it was a large work and that it would fit into this space. And subsequently, we saw the work in his studio and we started a conversation about what could go along with that. And as Ghulam Bhai pulled out older works as prints, and we realized that the city was something that has been a preoccupation across really from the time he came to Baroda, which is when the world opened up to him, to the Jaisalmer poems, the photographs, Fatehpur Sikri, and so many of his works, how this has continued. And something which we don't often have a chance to see is the process of the way a work is made. And this gives us the opportunity to also work and look through how the city was created. And through Ghulam Bhai's extremely meticulous archive, he pulled out studies which were in the form of maquettes, in the form of the murals, and the plans of the aerial views of the city, all of which are on display over here. And just to be able to work through that process to then see what the work was towards the end in the display is also in the video at the back of the distillery. It's about 30 minutes, but it's a composition from when the work started in his studio to him describing the work in Shanghai to installation images as well. Outside in the courtyard over here is also a way of seeing how there are other works and paintings where the city comes in, but also how for Ghulam Bhai, through his practice, his keen interest to push boundaries in relation to the city, how the outcome has materialized in paintings, poems, and also eventually an inspiration for many other artists, because I think we often talk about how artists have inspired us, but over here one can experience Vanraj Bhatia's compositions, which are from Ghulam Bhai's poems on Jaisalmer, and eventually that was performed in Bombay in 1977. 1977 by the Paranjyoti Choir, which we'll be playing the recording of later on, but are also on display with the Jaisalmer photographs inside. I'd like to read out a short excerpt which is in the foreword to book on Gulam Bhai at Home in the World by Chaitanya Sambrani. He says that just as works of poetry need a sharper concentration, the paintings of Gulam Bhai, much like the poet he is, seek to reveal themselves only to the patient viewer. His paintings are not ones to be looked at for a few minutes to try and extract the meaning as if they were a puzzle. Gulam Bhai's work nearly always needs us, the viewers, to have a contextual lesson on his thought process, on his ideas, and on his journey towards his work. On this note, I'd like to invite Gulam Bhai to share with us his thoughts, narrative, and journey through city and the cities. Thank you.
I can open that button. At the very outset, I would like to thank Virangana first of all for very in a gentle manner persuading me to open my archive. Can you hear me? So it was an interesting proposition. I thought it would be worthwhile to see how this work was actually made. And we gradually found a number of drawings and some maquettes and other things, and we put it all together with the help of Virangana, Kavya Oja, and my associate Chirag Panchal, and another associate called Umesh Sarvaiya even made the small statuettes that were made for the original work from the rubber mold that we happen to have. How do we think of city? Two thoughts come to mind immediately. Petrarch, the philosopher poet of the early Renaissance, in the 14th century, had taken a ride. That means he walked up the hill of Fiesole outside the city of Florence, and he exclaimed in wonder that the city he knew, in which he walked every day, suddenly appeared an entirely different city. That was in 14th century. Also, the great Ambrogio Lorenzetti in the city of Siena painted his own city of Siena, as though walking through the city. So you have these precedents which come to mind as I think of city or my city. I'm also reminded of a poem called The City by a Greek poet called Konstantin Kavafi. I will read it out to you. You said, I'll go to another land. I'll go to another sea. Another city will be found, a better one than this. Every effort of mine is a condemnation of fate, and my heart is like a corpse buried. How long will my mind remain in this wasteland? Whenever I turn my eyes, wherever I may look, I see black ruins of my life here, where I spent so many years destroying and wasting. you will find no new lands. You will find no other seas. The city will follow you. You will roam the same streets and you will age in the same neighborhoods and you will grow gray in these same houses. Always you will arrive in this city. Do not hope for any other. There is no ship for you. There is no road. As you have destroyed your life here, in this little corner, you have ruined it in the entire world. How do I think of a city? What exactly is a city? We all know that it is made of bricks and stones and mortars and whatnot, my architect friends would tell you. Cement and mortar, and yet it appears to be a living being, a creature of enormous proportions, a phantom animal. It chases you, no matter where you try to escape, in your dreams or in your wakefulness. We all reside in its belly, in its veins, in its nerves, and entrails, as it envelops you in. You are within the city, but the city dwells in you. It appears in a number of guises: to speak, to argue, to embrace, but it also hurts and also heals. It can eat you up and throw you out. It can make or mar your day, your work. It can corner you or stand by you. Its walls may imprison you, yet provide warmth to your restless spirit. It will catch you in its pincers if you try to wriggle out of its grasp. Where do you go? Where to escape its orbit? It builds your world for you, bit by bit, as they would say, brick by brick. So to say, to make your citadel your home and hearth. So inhabit its present day in and day out. Those who escape often carry the city of their past in their belly. The city remains a storehouse of memories, an archive of your life, where all you experienced or witnessed stands before you, populating your entire self or your being. You belong to it, and it belongs to you. Yet you never possess it. City is a vagabond lover, belongs to all who inhabit it. Well, these are just thoughts. But let me come down on earth. The city has followed me ever since I stepped in what you call the city of Baroda. I came from a small town called Surendranagar in Kathiawar, and I had never gone to a big town until then, big city. Literally 65 years ago, I struggled to scribble its form in drawings and gouaches, where it appeared as a cluster, a mound, or a distant barking horizon. Later on, the mute city happened during the years of the emergency. I, however, found it formed entirely of riotous human bodies in city for sale. Years later, it opened up like a beating heart, or yet again in a sketchy map dotted with statuettes it harbored. So all it happened about this particular work that you witnessed, the original, an invitation to participate in a unique exhibition combining artists from China and India for the first time in Asian history, made me think of the city I had lived in for half a century. As I began to reimagine it, and I had made City for Sale earlier, which was all made of human bodies. And here I had this young assistant called Sukhdev Rathod. He suggested I look at it through Google Earth. The first view of watching the satellite image of Baroda shattered all previous notions of how I had seen a city. Here it appeared as a spectacular living organism, a gargantuan creature of sorts, made entirely of clusters of what appeared to be houses or buildings. When you closed in the clusters, the life within came alive. The simultaneity of the distant and the proximate. It was simultaneously distant. It was thousands of miles away, and yet you entered the very heart of the city, the proximate, right there. These views were mind-boggling. So what to do? How to grapple with the city? Such a city. This, you found it somewhere up there in a satellite. It's not your eye. It's somebody else's eye that looks at it and it projects it for you. But the best part is that unlike the city that you observe when you are on a plane, you can never see it close in. You never go close to it. But the Google Earth actually opens it out and you can enter the street. You can enter people living there, even enter in the houses, and I would say that you could even see the toe of somebody moving. It's almost like that. And that is absolutely mind-boggling. How to deal with that? Artists have used images of various kinds, but this is something which was most unusual. It had never happened in the history of mankind. And this is something which, as I said, that though India and China has been close neighbors, but there has never been an exhibition of artists of India and China. I don't know how it happened. 10 artists from China came all the way to Baroda, went to Delhi, went to Bangalore, went to all places and met Indian artists. And 10 of us went to China and went to Beijing and all kinds of places and met them. And eventually each one of us decided that we'll make our own. Some work relating to the life that we lived in these cities. So I decided to reimagine this city based on Google Earth. So at the outset, we thought we could design it like an ovoid form. Top part and the bottom, but slightly circular at the bottom. And we made a maquette, as you perhaps can see in the exhibition, and divided the old and the new city. The old city with all its closely sort of entangled houses and streets, and the new city, which is neatly separated societies. So we decided to have both together. So series of drawings in crayon and charcoal and all that, and supplemented with watercolor and gouache and casein. A trial in gold pigment upon the printed image of the city was also carried out. Experiments continued with small-scale structures in relief in clay, then cast in papier-mâché to explore the possibility of achieving volume So the sculpted house structures in paper pulp was built upon to color it. In fact, we even tried that the pulp can be burned. That there is something about what it does. So, in a way, trying to bring it's not unusual. My friend Jairam Patel had already used blowtorch, and here we used it on the paper pulp structure, and our studio then turned into a little lab at that time. Well, this is roughly the story, but if you want, I can just tell you that we began to draw around what we decided was to choose the arterial routes. Going back to my description of it being an animal, being a living being, we chose those streets which were arterial. We just those arteries around which we started building. It slowly gave the idea of making the city. We had to actually create it. We were not going to copy the image of the photograph that we had acquired from Google Earth. We were in a way following the map, but it was not a map. So we were in fact creating the city, or rather building the city, as we began to draw a series of houses and buildings from our imagination, or based upon hundreds of photographs of the city that we had amassed. We were not following it verbatim either. We were literally constructing structures, even creating streets which weren't in the Google map, up and down, standing straight or upside down, as though viewed from multiple angles. And all this was done. Everything was done with just one particular instrument called colored pencil. And it was a brown colored pencil. There are 6 of us, and we are all drawing houses from our imagination or from wherever they came from. And we started drawing and erasing and redrawing and repainting. We gradually, as I said, bit by bit, brick by brick, in that sense, in drawing, we started building the city. My painter friends would like to know the technique. The technique was very simple. It was drawn with colored pencil, and then it was touched with just plain water, so that you get the volume around it. And we built up the whole city in this fashion, working for months together. As we continued with the structures, human imagery emerged in the streets or its corners, in houses, in squares. We found daily wage workers, a man repairing a bicycle, another fixing an umbrella, still another mending shoes. We also stumbled upon little statuettes of a Fayyaz Khan or an Ambedkar, and in the end found a few possessions of Gandhiji that he had left behind after his death. A watch, a pair of slippers, his spectacles, and a thali. These are, by the way, all on display in the Baroda Museum. And his spectacles and a thali. But here, they are all scattered all over. We discovered a barber shop that my friend Bhupen Khakkar painted. We found a woman assaulted by an enraged husband from a Rajasthani painting, etc., etc. We made quotes from various sources. So we found people everywhere within and without the borders of the city. There were remains of the best bakery from the riot-ridden city of 2002, forlorn graveyards, playgrounds, and Lake Sursagar. The most amazing discovery was the vast dimensions of the central prison, which rivaled the scale of the city palace. What does it speak about our city? Thus, the city got built bit by bit, fragment by fragment. So I have written a few poems. These were written in 1970s. I'll read out the translations. I have some. Shall I read one original? One in Gujarati, and then the rest in translations. It's called Shahar. Bhunda Bak Dhan Jevu. Shahar. ભૂંડા બક ધાન જેવું કોળિયાની સાથે આંતરડામાં ઉતરી જાય છે. કડવું કઢંગું શિરાઓમાં પ્રસરે, પાંસળામાં ખૂણા કાઢે, હાથ પગ જીભે પરસેવો લાળ થઈ લટકે, શ્વાસમાં ગંધાય સંડાસ જેવું, આંખો અને ગુદામાં બારીઓ જેવું ઉઘડે બંધ થાય, રજળતો થૂંકી નાખું શહેરને, ઓકું ફૂટપાથ પર મૂતરી કાઢું, બકું લવું એની કવિતા. This is the first poem. But it's Gujarati. I hope it has gone everywhere. But let me read the translation made by Hamang Desai, a young poet not very far from Anand. Like rotten food, with each morsel it slithers down the innards. Acrid and ugly, it spreads into veins, peeks out of ribs. Like sweat and saliva, it sticks to hands and feet and tongue, reeking its faces. It opens and closes like windows in eyes and ass. Wandering around, I spit out the city, puke it on the pavement, piss it off, babble, and prattle its poetry. That is the first one. The second one is puffed rice. That's also city, number 2. Puffed rice, peanuts, saliva stuffed in the mouth, eyes fixed on the thighs of a brazen beauty, sprawled out on the wall, hands caressing the pet in the pajamas. On roads, deities stuck in sex like dogs. In the background, rumbling of buses, cars, rickshaws. Schoolboys pee and play on the edge of sunshine. Sprouting a new structure every day, the city bugs the sky with its 1,000 lingams. 3. City 3. The city jostles me like a stranger, threatens to rob me, shoves me daily to the railway station, along with all the spat outs of the city, the insiders and outsiders, like me. Beggars licking mudguards of cars, a bunch of tribals fluttering like moths cooking supper into night's tunnel after the day-long toil of spraying tar, dissolved in smoke and sweat. Pimps fondling private parts under the guise of massage. Hawkers blaring like butchers. Buses, goats, dogs, cows, clerks, squalor, sots with reddened eyes and bloated cheeks. Lepers, the split image of the broken head of the Mathura Buddha, as I unshackle my bicycle from the heap stacked like ant rows to flee the city like a caged lion keeps roaring from behind. This is the third city. These were written. Earlier I had gone to other cities, even found an ancient spot like Mahabalipuram. It must have been a city in those days. In my 60s, when I must have just reached my 30s in my age, I wrote these poems. Mahabalipuram. Man's dream here has a very sharp edge. Teeth marks of the hungry dead pit the flanks of domesticated beasts. Staggering badly, a 1300-year-old wind passes between a sow's sagging dugs. And yesterday's sculptor's rough fingers, straining to sink inside, are tugged into the spotted feathers of hands, purposelessly alive. Chameleons slumber at ease in the belly of rubbish and slime-covered frogs. Oak, obscene fun at God, who sits exhausted on the steps. Crabs, peeping through a cypress's dry skin, giggle like fish. And there, fallen like a raw black rock, on a clump of tender wild flowers, idle Satan yawns and writhes awake. That was Mahabalipuram. Then there was also a poem about the city of Delhi. Again, it is 1973. This was translated by, that previous one was translated by Adil Jasawala and me. This one is translated by Mala Marwa, who was one of our students in fine art, an artist and a poet. Over the fort like a broken loaf, sunshine sharp like radishes, grass and stones nestling in the ruins of Tughlaqabad. Shadows within arches shadowed, Khidki Masjid. Steps in rows fleeting through the eyes like a needle at Jama Masjid. The Qutub erect, stretching from root to throat, smells all around of food, of flesh, blood, prisons and palaces, yesterdays, centuries. Breath caught and fixed to this moment, the eye alive, wheeling through the past, enters the cracks in Ghalib's tomb, seeking Khan Khanan's fossilized bones, wanders from tomb to tomb with the restless fate of Jahanara. Still, dust and mist. Still, nothing separates flesh and stone. A sunbeam sipping through the vagina of a dove, asleep upon the western arches of the Red Fort, pierces my eye. Still dawn. Dreams mate with reality. What will be the face of the morning? That was. And that takes me back still further in 1963, when my friend Bhupen Khakkar and I both decided to go to the city of Jaisalmer in Rajasthan. We had heard that M.F. Hussain, the celebrated artist, had already gone there and made a film. So we were both excited and we wanted to go there. We took a train to Pokhran. Pokhran was not known for the atomic blast at that time, to 1963. I was 26 or so. Anyway, and we both boarded a bus and found a dharamsala to stay in, where we spent 4 or 5 days, and where I scribbled 6 poems on Jaisalmer. So now let me tell you before I read them out. I can read 1 or 2 in Gujarati, but I'll read the rest in English translation. That in 1977, the well-known musician Vanraj Bhatia was trained in Paris and elsewhere, had read these poems because he was a Kutchi and he knew Gujarati. He knew Gujarati literary people in Bombay and decided on his own to set them to music. And he wrote me. So I said, how are you going to do it? He said, you come and see. So when I went there, it was in one of the halls in Bombay. I don't know which one it is, but I think somewhere in the main city of Bombay, where an entire choir of something like 30 people, men and women, were going to sing my free verse poems. How would they do it? And when I heard it, first I was quite confused, but later on I realized what it was. Vanraj had made it possible for each of them to use the Gujarati language, the poems in Gujarati, with the right intonations. It must have been a hard job. Most of them were non-Gujaratis. And he made them sing. And I said, what is it? Is it a Western way of dealing with Indian poetry? He said, no, it's a modern way. As you folks do your poetry, as you folks do your paintings, I do with music. And here I have tried. I said, but they do it in what? He said, yes, usually choir sings in Latin or German, so why not Gujarati? Perhaps it is for the first time that Gujarati language is used by a singing choir. So that we will hear after the poems are read out. Let me read out one or two. I don't know which one to read. I know my Gujarati friends are sitting here, they are all watching. Anyway, I'll read one, the first one. It's a descriptive poem. Maru thale moti madhyo a nagar. And a todale more. And a beete phare hathi. Jarukhe patthar nu heer bharat. બારીએ બુઠ્ઠી તરવારોના તોરણ સાંજના અજવાળે ભીંતો નારંગી ચોંદડીની જેમ ફરફરે બારણે લોઢાના કડે 8 પેઢીના હાથનો ઘસરકો ફળીએ ફરે 2-4 બકરા શ્યામ ડેલીબાર ડેકાર દે કામડું ઊંટ વચલી વંડીએ સુકાય રાતા ચીર અંદરને ઓરડે ફુગાઈ ગયેલા અંધારે ફરફરે ઢીલી વાટ લાલ ચટક ચૂલાની ઝાડ અને ચૂંદડીના અજવાળે રોટલા ટીપતી સોનેરી કન્યા. This is the first poem. I will read only one more in Gujarati. This is number 3. કોટના કાંગરામાંથી માથું કાઢી નગરી નીચે જોતી હતી. By the way, the city of Jaisalmer is, as you would see in the photographs which are there, where the Jaisalmer recordings are shown. So the city is both within the fort as well as on the bottom. So કોટના કાંગરામાંથી માથું કાઢી નગરી નીચે જોતી હતી. નમણા દેખાય 2 બાજુના ઘર અને એથી એ નમણી અડધી પરધી હવેલીઓ વચ્ચેની ગલી જાજરમાન નગરી નીચે તાકી રહી હતી. ત્યારે ઉત્તરથી ડમરીના ડંકા સાથે ચડી આવ્યા ઊંટ. ભૂખરા કથ્થાઈ તેજીલા ઊંટ વાવાઝોડાની જેમ હવેલીઓને ઘેરી વળ્યા અને જતા જતા કિલ્લાને પોઠ પર નાખીને નાઠા. અવાચક નગ્ન નગરી 2 ઘડી હેબતાઈ ઊભી પછી નફટ થઈને ડમરીની પૂંઠે ચાલી નીકળી. This is the third poem. I'll read out these translations The first one was made by a poet called Salim Piradena. They had all worked with me, but Salim, who died very recently, was a dear friend. Salim was also from Kutch, and he knew some Gujarati, so we were able to communicate to each other, and he was able to cast it into kind of English. He was a poet, by the way, so he cast it in. In a desert land, this pearl-studded city, peacocks perch on brackets and elephants ramble over walls. Every balcony lace embroidered in stone. Every window festooned with gashes of blunt swords. In the twilight, walls flare like orange ordinies. I've kept that word ordini, the drape. 8 generations of hands have smoothened the door's iron ring. Black goats loiter in the courtyard, and beyond the yard door the dutiful camel neighs. Red garments dry over the middle wall. A limp flame flickers in a room of moldy darkness. In the hearth's red flush, in the chundari's glow, a golden girl needs a city. Jaisalmer too, out of hard rock, carved walls, tough as shields, chiseled balconies curving like camel's neck, plastered courtyard with ancestral blood. Ground this inherited lump of sun gold into a saffron-colored drink. Rummaged old chest to redeem an opium bowl. Then gulping ancient memories, age-old shadows fell motionless. Number 3, the one that I have read it. Raising its head above the fort, the city was looking eastward, charming rows of houses, and still more delightful the lane winding through the ruined mansions. The majestic city was peering down from above. Then came camels trumpeting funnels of dust, grey, brown, swift-footed camels taking the town as if by storm. And on their way out, hauling away the fort on their backs. Speechless, naked, the city stood outraged, hesitated for a moment, then shamelessly went after the dust pirates. Jaisalmer 4. The sun's 12 faces blazed, and setting furrows all the 12 worlds. The orphaned sand just lay there, and the clouds ran away seeking their chance. The stars grinned, impotent, when all those houses on the desert's edge got up and left. Dead camels on their backs. Bundles and belongings fell useless in the sand. The riders' turbans flew in shreds like the feathers of birds, quite killed and eaten. And half-naked men kept gulping the desert's thorny air, their mouths wide open. Number 5. To the splashes of white lime stuck between bricks, I appealed. Of brick-colored walls, I inquired. To the poisonous green mold on both of gigantic gates, I turned I bent towards a torn ancestral turban, just cast off, to the eyelid umbrella over a balcony shaping the wind to its carvings. I asked a question. I begged, rags of a skirt drying on the fort wall, interrupted streets flirting brazenly with the sleeping palace's thresholds. I gazed into the round eyes, encircled by drying wrinkles, faced the dried earth bearing thistles. I tried the pigeons mating in the rubble of a broken dome. As afternoon broke, the questions all fell to pieces. As afternoon broke, the questions all fell to pieces as eventide came. Silence flooded me in a flash, flowing up to my nostrils. As I looked tenderly in the direction of the early popping stars, two quick pigeons locked themselves in my eyes. The last one, which is not well translated because I've done it, but there is something of it there. So it is all in a kind of a rhythm, as you might have noticed, that all poems are in a sequence of sort, one by one, at the first descriptive and then gradually turns into dialogue and finally, in the end, red deeper than blood, deserts yellow, brighter than owl flowers, houses stark as a white dove, the timid sun, black, pitch black, denser than sighs, stones of turrets, blurred steps, smoother than heels, slow and slight, blue-grey, entire, bygone past. So this was Jaisalmer. May I request you, whoever is in charge, to play if you have heard some part of Gujarati, try to you may find the words, because it's sung exactly as it is written in Gujarati. Thank you
बिसाला सफेद चुना न बताओ वालों ने पूछो जेरी लक्ष्मण करती चोटी बाला न बाला छत्री वाला जरुकानी कोटनी माधवी गरी हवा ने पूछो किल्लानी रंगे लपकता चनिया
Thank you very much, Gulam Bhai, for I think every time that you speak about the city, there's always so many new perspectives that are added to it. And thank you for sharing so much this evening. And I think it's been really special to hear you read the poems as well. And I think that's also opened up so much to go back to the exhibition and look at it all over again, which I hope all of you will have a chance to do. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'd like to invite all of you to also join us for some tea and refreshments, which are at the back, and also come back and visit the exhibition again. Thank you.